Today you're starting the 7th grade textbook, Chapter 1, Lesson 1, Terminating and Repeating Decimals. You will be taking a page of notes every day. There's an outline and you just kind of fill in the blanks. If you need a copy of this, you can pick up a copy of the entire year's notes in the office. I have found books full of notes for you, so you can pick that up or have a parent pick it up. Today we're on page 1, 7th grade, Chapter 1, Lesson 1, Terminating and Repeating Decimals. So we need to talk about how to write a fraction as a decimal. Any number that is over 100 is expressed as 0, and decimal, then whatever that number is. For example, if you had 75 over 100, that would be just decimal 75, which of course as a percent is 75%. So we need to look, those are special decimals because their denominators are a denominator with 100, 10, or 1,000. Kind of like our place values, tenths, hundredths, or thousandths. And we need to look for magic denominators like that, or factors of 100. For example, if you had 7/20ths, could I change the 20 to 100 by multiplying by something? Yes, so that is a factor of 100. 20 times 5 gets me 100. So if I multiply by the same thing on top, 7 times 5 makes 35. 35 hundredths is decimal 35, or 35%. Mixed numbers are whole numbers and fractions. They are mixed. Mixed numbers sum up whole numbers and fractions. So it's kind of like you're adding a whole number and a fraction when you write a mixed number. For example, 5 3/4 is really 5 plus 3/4. And 5 as a decimal is just 5. And 3/4 as a decimal, again, that's one of those magic ones. You could change it to a 100 by multiplying the denominator times 25 and the numerator also times 25, and you would get 75. So 3/4 is 0.75. Of course, 3/4 is a common one, so I hope that you'll memorize the fractions. So 5 plus 0.75 makes 5.75. So 5 3/4 as a decimal number is 5.75. Now there's other fractions that aren't quite as simple. They are not common factors with 100 as a denominator, nor are they common ones like 3/4 or a half. They're ones that require a little bit more work. So for those, I was taught to say top in, bottom out, because it kind of sounds silly, like somebody bending over and putting their top in and their bottom out. Most teachers in your lower grades, I think, talk about man horse to help you remember how to solve these. A fraction like 3/16 must be divided to get the decimal value. And we remember man, horse. The man goes inside the house and the horse stands outside, or top in and bottom out. And we have to divide. 16 does not go into 3, so we put down a decimal and a 0, and we keep going. 16 goes into 30 once. And you'll have to borrow 14 left over. So we put another 0 and keep going. 16 goes into 140 8 times with 12 left over. Another 0, keep going till you run out of remainders. 16 goes into 120 7 times, which is 112, with 8 left over. There has been nothing repeat, no patterns, so we're just going to keep going. 16 goes into 80 5 times. Nothing left over, finally. So 3/16 is equal to decimal 1875. This is called a terminating decimal, when everything divides out perfectly. Now, repeating decimals. Probably when a decimal repeats. Repeating decimals repeat with a pattern. So there has to be a pattern that's repeating. Like 8/11. Again, man, horse, top number in, bottom number out. 11 does not go into 8, so we put down a decimal and a 0. 11 goes into 8 7 times. 7 times 11 is 77, with 3 left over. So put down another 0 because I do not see a pattern yet. 11 goes into 30 2 times. 2 times 11 is 22. Subtract, I get 8. Bring down a 0. 11 goes into 80 7 times. 7 times 11 is 77. I hope you're starting to see a pattern. And again, 11 goes into 30 2 times. So the part that's repeating is the 7 and the 2. So 8/11 equals decimal 7 2. And we show that the 7 and the 2 are repeating by putting a bar on top. The bar has to go over what part of it is repeating. So the 7 and the 2 are both repeating. The bar has to go over both numbers. This is called bar notation, when we put a bar over the repeating digit. Or digits. So there's your notes. And I hope yours looks a little neater than mine. There is a typed version of the notes on the classwork section. So if you can't read something, you can look there. Examples. We have the guided practice for Chapter 1, Lesson 1, Terminating and Repeating Decimals. Number 1 says there were 6 girls and 18 boys in Mrs. Johnson's math class. Express the numbers of girls as a fraction of the number of boys. Then express the fraction as a repeating decimal. Express the number of girls as a fraction of the number of boys. So girls is going to be the numerator, and then the boys will be the denominator. And again, if you simplify, it'll make your life simpler. So we can divide both 6 and 18 by 6. 6 divided by 6 makes 1, and 18 divided by 6 makes 3. That's one of the common ones that I told you to memorize. 1/3, and 1/3 is 0.3 repeating. And that's all you have to do. If it's a common fraction, you don't have to divide it out because I want you to memorize them. Number 2, in a neighborhood of 72 families, 18 families own 1 or more cats. Express the number of families who own 1 or more cats as a fraction. Then express the fraction as a decimal. Okay, so we want to express the families who own cats. That would be 18 over our total, which is 72. And sometimes when we simplify, it's hard to think of the biggest number. So it's okay if you can think, well, I know that they're even, so I can divide at least by 2. And 18 divided by 2 makes 9. 72 divided by 2 makes 36. And then I know that I can also divide 9 and 36 by 9. 9 divided by 9 is 1, and 36 divided by 9 is 4. If you are really good at your multiplication facts, then you might have said, oh, I can divide both of these by 18. And you can get to the same place in one step. Either way is fine. They both simplify to 1/4. And fourths are the easy one to memorize because fourths are quarters. And 1/4 would be 0.25. Number 3. In Italy, about 74 of every 100 people use cellular telephones. Express the fraction of cellular phone users in Italy. Then express the fraction as a decimal. Well, it says 74 of every 100, so that's 74 over 100. And that's one of our special ones. It's got a denominator of 100, so we just need to write the top number, 74 hundredths, because that means that the last digit is in the hundredths place, 74 hundredths. Number 4. Miss Rockwell surveyed her class and found that 12 out of the 30 students chose peaches as their favorite fruit. Express the number of students who chose peaches as the fraction in simplest form. Then express the fraction as a decimal. This time we have to write it as a fraction and put it in simplest form. So those who chose peaches were 12 out of 30. What could we divide 12 and 30 by? Again, you can at least do 2 because you know they're both even. And 12 divided by 2 makes 6, and 30 divided by 2 makes 15. And then I know that those will both divide by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Of course, the largest number that you could divide it by would be 6. And you could have gotten there in one step. Okay, 2/5 as a decimal. Fifths are easy. Think of your hand. Let's see if I can draw one. Got 5 fingers. Count by 20s. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So 2 would be 40. So 2/5 is 0.40. Number 5. Tora took a short trip of 320 miles. He stopped to have lunch after he had driven 120 miles. Express the fraction of the trip he had completed by lunch in simplest form. Then express the fraction as a decimal. So he completed 120 out of 320. Notice there is a 0 on top and a 0 on bottom. That means we can divide both numbers by 10. Or if the zeros line up, sometimes I just mark them both out. And that leaves 12 over 32. So what could I divide 12 and 32 by? 4. They both divide by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 32 divided by 4 is 8. And this is also a common one. Often the 8s are on star test. So we really want to memorize the 8s. 8s count by 0.125. So 1/8 is 0.125. 2/8 is 0.250. And then 3/8 is 0.375. Number 6. Number 6, in a recent school election, 208 of the 325 freshmen voted in their class election. Express the fraction of freshmen who voted. Then express the fraction as a decimal. 208 out of 325. And this one's a hard one. They both divide by 13. And that one you may have to just guess and check until you find something that they both divide. But both of them divide by 13. So 208 divided by 13 is 16. So 16 is my new numerator. And then 325 divided by 13 is 25. So 208 over 325 simplified is 16 over 25. Now we have to change that to a decimal. And we could do man-horse, where we divide it out. Or I noticed that 25 is a multiple of 100. So I could change that to 100. What could I do to 25 to get to 100? Times 4. So if I do that on top, 16 times 4 is 64. That means that 16 25ths is equal to 0.64.